All right, so we're going to start with creating circulation from the hips into the ribs. So what I want you to find is yourself sitting in front of your bolster. If you're near wall space, we are going to use wall space today. Make sure that you're not pushed too close to that, so you'll have an appropriate range of just kind of wandering with your leg length. Okay, so placing your seat in front of the bolster, lean back, and then as the feet step apart, you want to find that the arch of the back is supported here. So it might mean that you add a blanket on top of the bolster. You might be quite comfortable here with your elbows down. But if you need something on top of the bolster, just add a blanket. Okay. Let the knees wander side to side. So as they shift, you want to feel that the bones have weight in the hips and a little, like about 20% maximum in the feet. So you do want to feel like you kind of roll on the bottom of the foot, but we don't usually roll through our foot this way when we walk, unless you fall over, right? You usually roll through from the ball to the heel. So now we're kind of rotating that circulation to be familiar with the inside and the side of the foot. So if this is a little tender on your hip to stretch, you can always take a slower approach to it or not go as far over. But now as we come back to the center, we're going to walk the feet in. You might have to reset your elbows on the bolster and then lift the right foot and place that right foot to the left knee. It could be like real properly pressing. You're on the side though. And feel that right knee motion forward. If you want to sit up on your bolster to do this, you can. I kind of like the cushion of the bolster under my tush, because then I can work on moving this right knee out, just out and forward or downwards. And it's like a seated pigeon pose at this version. Most will tend to like to sit on the ground in front of the bolster, so you're kind of just easeful resting back. But it doesn't promote quite as much depth into the hip, but we'll get there. Okay, so you want to feel like you kind of do a little tease in the hip. Switch sides, right foot down, left foot up. Place it. Now you might be pushing your knee over to get the foot hooked up to the knee. So you want to work on your lower abdominal muscles, see if you can recruit those. And if necessary, use your hands to cross the foot to the knee. Right? I didn't mention that last time, but always use your bones to help prop the positioning. And then if you're sitting on the bolster and you're sort of pushing into it, you're not necessarily right in the center, but tilted. It's fine if you want to have the hands on the bolster or back behind and lean forward so that you can kind of eke out that sensation in the hip. Eke a hip. And so as the hip stretches, or maybe you're not sure if it's your hip or if it's your leg, the leg peak is kind of the hips. All right, and then as you take that left foot down, if you're sitting on the floor in front of the bolster, go ahead and sit up on the bolster and then take a block and place it next to the bolster, actually at the bolster, so it's flat. So you're right at that lowest setting block. Hands on the bolster, sit on the block so you can feel where the tailbone is centered on the block, but you have most posterior tilt in the pelvis. And then as you lower back on the bolster, you've got quite a bit of support here for your lumbar, your thoracic, and don't lose the sandbag near you. Get that sandbag onto you at first, just set it on, and then your head back on the blankets. Okay, so appropriate setting of the sand as we get into the kind of the wave of breathing now is to move the sand so it's at the very front of the hip and the frontal hip bones, and that may feel when you stretch your legs down an appropriate level of kind of focus into your quads. And some of us might find, no, it's too much for my back, so we bend the knees, even with the sand there. okay? If you decide to let the knees bend, and that's just, it feels better, you might push the sandbag so it is still giving you circulation benefit into those front thighs, okay? If your legs are straight and extending, or kind of straight-ish, you'll set the feet apart so that there is a possibility of lengthening in this front zone, but also a widening. So arms are open. Yeah, blanket kind of set so it's comfortable. This might be a day where you want to start with the 2 blankets under your head, even if you could go down to the 1. Feel if the width of the front rib space can actually motion outwards. Even if your focus sometimes with your breathing is to kind of go narrow and pull it in, feel if you inhale that you're spanning or you're expanding. How about that? Not spanning, but expanding. And not all of you can expand, right? Some of your parts of your body are going to be very controlled on the back line, and the front spaces can expand. So just come into letting your eyes relax, breathing slow, and feeling the breath as it exits each time. Let the weight of your head maybe nod a little side to side if your neck is feeling tense or it's just beginning to settle down. Just swallowing to clear the passageway around the breath. And without a doubt, there's the possibility of you trying to make it perfect, your pose, exploring expansion, just generic feeling that there's an openness, however related the legs are, whether they're bending, whether they're extending, or they're turned out, just pure feeling that you can settle in and accept that front space to open up. The chest, the hips. Okay, now we still have the bolster remaining in this fairly higher space of our back. So bend the knees so that you can easily move that sand aside. And then place your soles of your feet together. You might have the big toe inner line kind of touch. And then when the soles of the feet kind of move towards each other, you have to find an acceptance on if they do stay really close, they might separate still. And if the knees position themselves outwards and it feels like it's real grippy, in the adductors it feels kind of ropey, that sensation, then you might slide the feet a little bit down, you might bring them a little higher up. It depends on how the knees respond generally, and also my back. So if my feet are too close, eventually it seems to get back pressure. Okay, it seems to receive that, my back. So if I slide them down, it's more a leg stretch. So be a little careful of how much you're willing to press into the leg muscles. But if we observe the pose, it's pose observance day. How about that? Just kind of observe the sensation, and if it becomes, excessive, then you can always bring your knees to point up and kind of let them shift a little side to side and try it again. Trying to loosen up the strands of the adductors. Take a few more moments here before we get to kind of a whole different pattern of experience. Enjoy the supine position, floor-based posture. And if the abdomen is simply accepting of that motion of breath, We're going to try that out when we're in table pose next. So you can kind of feel that with gravity, you feel the movement of the breath here. You feel like you're trying to lift the torso with it. When you're on all fours, it's not the same because gravity just has you and everything motions down towards the earth. So as you move the knees to point up, scoot the feet in towards your seat. And then as you kind of kindly shift, so I would lift up the seat just the tiniest bit to slide the block out. And we might put your block kind of back over behind the blankets. We might need it a little bit there. But as you feel that satisfying arch in the spine, you can feel this is almost like that. It's an arch spine. Roll to the either side. Doesn't matter today which side you go out of that. But when you come over, you're going to turn so you're facing the back of your mat. You're on hands, knees, table pose. You have to scoot things around so your hands fit. And knees apart. If you need a blanket under them, just get one. Actually, this might be a pose you need a blanket if you're on a surface that's not very padded. You can just add it. But as we come into the cat pose, we round the spine. And I just allow my arms to touch to the bolster. I kind of feel the bolster with the setting of my arms. And then arch the back. Nice thing about being in a table position as we alternate now, cat-cow, is you can control how much you arch and round, right? You can make the arching less, you can make the rounding easeful. Okay, now we'll place the knees together. We're going to work significantly on our side muscles coming up here. So as the right foot reaches back, watch out for what's behind you. You're going to turn the right foot out so that the hip turns open. Again, if you need some padding under your knee, you can always use your blanket and stretch the right arm up. Okay, so we all want to work on this right side turning and rotating. Yes. Yeah, and it's I know not as comfy as a side sage. It's interactive. But you want to turn your head so you're looking down to your left hand, whether it's shaky or it's open and pressing. Feel that inner space of the hand, that thumb to the index finger, that webbing. That first webbing is what it's called. And then as you move that right arm over the side of the face, so you're reaching through the waist. Okay, just kind of play this one for a few moments with that sensation of, the efforting. All right, and then you'll lower your right hand down, and then, interestingly enough, we'll slide the right foot in and then sit next to the bolster. And we'll take side sage now. So we've had a little bit of exposure of muscle, kind of muscle testing really in that last position. So take your time to set up. I know the other day we worked with some people had two bolsters, one round, one flat. So if you want to add your round bolster here and then your flat instead of your blankets, just think of that as the bolster or blankets would be your option. Now, when I kind of test out my reach before I get my sand, I want to kind of feel if I'm going to work with my sand on my ribs or on my hip, or maybe you're not using sand today, but get a feel of that positioning of the support so it's grounding and it enriches the sensation. But maybe it's not working to kind of peel this open more. So you might feel where the sand is supporting you. Does it feel good? Just anywhere. It doesn't have to be particularly perfect on a muscle. Where it stays and doesn't fall is kind of a good place to put a sand in. It might be kind of sliding down a little bit towards your tummy, if that feels helpful. And the block overhead, probably pretty high up, as high as it will go. You can also stack 2 blocks. If you like to have more palm print on the block, you can have 2 flat blocks so you have more width with the hand. And then as you settle in, let the weight of your head relax into the blanket or the bolster, whichever you're using here, under your head. Okay, feel how it's changing the breath into the rib space. Even if you're sort of feeling the side moving with the breath, we're pretty trained to feel the front with breathing at this point with this class. So the side might be relatively new venture. So letting the weight settle into the ground, even the hip, the legs. You can have the ball on the inside of the right leg. You can have the support of the sand on the hip itself or on the ribs. Now with that right arm, whether it's a little more passive for you or it's stretching over, let's see if we can set the arm so it opens, even if your head stays on the blanket on its side. And I feel this chest muscle stretching. So you're trying to move the elbow back. You know, try to see if you can get the chest muscle to stretch, but not grip the neck more. And so you might feel that you have to get your head to relax completely. So you're isolating the stretch in the chest. Okay, now as we slide the sand away, we have another side to kind of venture. And this set is a little challenging, I know, with the balance of muscle work and then threading into stretch. So feel what might accommodate your needs. So I'll give a couple suggestions. We turn to go back to table pose. You might kind of reflect the last side. For me, it was a little more muscly than I want. So you could turn, and if you want to take a moment in between the 2 sides and kind of lie forward so your bolster is still across the mat, and bring your forehead, maybe even move your blankets forward. Bring your elbows wide and forehead down on the blankets, and just let the breathing focus be in your back. So I haven't really changed the props much, except I pushed my blankets a little farther back under my forehead. Yeah, and let the toes turn in, let the thighs relax. It's a little bit of pressure on the tummy. It's a little deep of that circulation to the psoas. Now, as you move the knees so they're apart, they're not in frog pose, but they're apart, so they're not squeezing together. Slide the hands back so they're under the shoulders and elbows by the sides, and take some care to roll the shoulders back and then press. Now, when you press, you're going to push the hips back to create table pose. And then, depending on how close you are to a wall, make sure you're a little distance from that wall space. Round your back, chin to chest. Inhale, arch the spine. Alongside the breath, exhale, round your back. Chin pulls in. And then find that neutral spine. Okay, now knees together, left leg back. Feel, I know if you need a blanket again, add one under your knee. I don't want you to suffer. Might be tolerable for some of us to have no blanket. But feel with this left foot turning out, you're rotating at the hip, and then that left arm lifts and you're feeling where the body turns. Now the generic direction for most of us when we do this is we look up. That's immediate, right? We go right to this lift. So you might turn your head to look down to the hand and really fulfill that reach of the left arm over the side of the face. Okay, one side you might find it's a little more tolerable, depends on where your foot is. That's stretching out behind your hip. If it's stretching back around the corner or it's straight down from the hip, how you balance. Lower the left hand to the bolster and then help yourself down next to the bolster with your hip. Pull the blankets in and then set up for that second side sage. I know this is a kind of odd combination, I have to admit, but it all makes sense. So as long as it makes sense with our yoga mat, we'll go with it. So ball on the inside of the left leg and sand on the external left side. And it looks like people are still here, so that's good. It's making some sense. And then as the left arm reaches, you can feel, I mean, my tendency, I do a lot of this turning on the back of my head. And when I observe it, it seems like that's becoming kind of a trend with this pose. So notice if that's okay for your neck. Not that it's bad, but if it feels like it's causing tension, you have to kind of close your eyes and just feel if that's true for you. Then you'd want to turn your head so you're really on the side. Okay, so you choose. Okay, now settle so that the waist lengthens. The weight is rather heavy into that right hip. And we don't need to push the hip down. There's no reason to add muscling to the position. But just feel the natural gravitational kind of descent. So if the nervous system is gripping up, tightening around, then it won't be quite as easeful to let go of the tension. So just noticing, that's relatively obvious, I know, but we all find ways to grip on that inner grip. Now feel when you come out of this shape. Okay, we're going to we have this left leg as the kind of the curved leg. The other leg is bending. We're going to kind of keep that. I like to maintain the balance lines of energy in the bones coming up here. So just simply slide the sand away nearby. And let yourself take your time. So you'll move the left knee towards the right knee and roll to the right and coming up and just sitting on your bolster. Take a seat. Hello. Okay, let's take a seat and we'll move our blankets in to the bolster and move a block behind you towards the front so all your goodies are near you. Okay, as far as your props. Okay, so we got a seat. I think I'm kind of pretty centered on the screen here. And we'll take the right leg moments ago was pulled towards the bolster, bending in. So let's reframe that. So you'll take that right leg, let it relax down. You might have to, I like to wobble a little side to side on my bolster to feel just the flesh kind of catch down. And then add a sandbag to the right thigh. If any of these feel like you need to modify it, please keep modifying as we go. Meaning if you need something under your knee or you want a little bit more cushion under your seat, you can add a blanket. But get a belt. I'll keep going with some directions anyhow. Have a belt. And then as you bring that left knee to point up, just sitting like this, it's unlikely you're going to feel a stretch in your left hamstring sitting like this. I imagine some people might, but so just think how advanced you are that way. You're doing okay. Your hip points are okay. The sand is on the right inner thigh. Okay, the knee is pointed down. And then we take our belt below the left foot. And below could be anywhere. It could be ball, arch, heel. Just really depends on where you catch your foot with your belt. And then feel if you can sit up tall. Right? Feel up tall, not up tight, but up tall. Okay. And of course, measuring our spine, right? If I round my back, it won't be as tall. None of us suffer from too much of this lift in our daily habit. You don't walk around, see a lot of this moving along. So just work with it in class. Kick the foot forward and hopefully your belt's holding it. Okay. It's nice to have a belt for this. And as we proceed, right, to lift that left leg up, this is my maximum. I started with it. This is probably it for my range. And I like to take the belt and wrap it around my hand. I don't think that that's helping anything particularly in maintaining the balance, but it's just a habit. So some of you might grip the belt just pure hold, but you might try that method of wrapping. I think it helps my wrist a little. So flexing, lifting. The only thing flexing is the foot. The elbows, the biceps are, they're flexing. Right, they're pulling in, you're flexing your biceps. Okay, now maintain, but see if you can be in heron pose, be kind of a relaxed heron as far as the lift here. You don't want to force this up too high. So feel how you let the leg kind of lean into the belt and you use the muscles to hold the leg properly up. And now bend the left knee like you're trying to get the knee to point a little towards the ceiling so the foot drops down. As you can see that level with the knee to the foot. And then we'll lower the foot, just hover it over the ground, but try to keep your belt still underneath it. Could be heel, could be ball. Okay, and shoulders back. All right, I know this is a little muscly to do. Breathe. It only helps. Okay, now we're not going to lift the foot back up. We're going to lower down, slide, and just let go of the belt. Cross the left leg over the right, and then get a feel of what changes in your pelvis. Right, so before, after, a little bit of a broadening of my lumbar. That should span it out, not tighten it. And then here you can choose to interlace your fingers and just sit mindfully here. This is good. I feel my hip stretch a tiny bit. Or turn to your left or to your right. Right arm to the left leg if you turn left. Left arm to left leg if you turn right. I think you should just sample them both and sample them with a reality that the spine circulation that you're playing with right now is your thoracic. So you're working on keeping that lumbar very secure and stable. So if I wind to the left, I don't know, I feel like that's safer for my back. And maybe it's not true, but I feel like I have to use some of my back muscles into my arm, the right arm, to create that turn. So recruit the breath motion in the belly. And relax the abdomen as you're rotating, so you're not trying to tighten and tighten it up, strengthening the diaphragm. That makes a lot of sense, just letting the belly move with the breath. Great. You know, come back. If you were right or you were left, you're back center. Take the sand off the right thigh. And then just move the left leg back. I don't know if I mentioned to have your blankets next to your bolster, but pull them in so they're right next to the bolster. And now we'll do it. We'll take the left leg back. So as is. Okay. So when the left leg is back, you want to get a feel if you can let your toes hook under a little bit. And that is an interesting connection, right? The interconnectedness, the connectivity into my right hip is quite obvious when I keep that back foot active. But at some point you'll want to go into a stretch, you know, kind of release. So you can bring your elbows to the ground. You can bring them up on top of some blocks. If you have that other bolster, you can put your elbows on your round bolster. But when you lean down, just feel where that circulation is at the top of the right thigh. It should be at the attachment of the hip and from the leg to the hip where you feel it. Your left foot can stay, you know, subtly active with the toes under. You could also be relaxed. Yeah, feel for your nervous system, which is the best approach for your back foot. Right, more is not always better here. You're feeling your head shift down, breathing. Now, where you feel your hip sensation in that right leg, see if you can let the motion be directly forward. I know you can't sit into your hip when you're reaching with your torso forward, but just let the focus be lengthening into the front. It's tricky. It's like you create more arch to try to effort that. So just keep playing with it. Seated poses are pretty advanced, right? So when I walk the hands back on the ground or the blocks, I'm going to purposely stay seated on the bolster. So I just lean into the right thigh. And then as the left leg, here you come forward. Now you just want to switch it around. So why not take a feet together position, knees out, and just kind of play with that for a few moments. Just that the feet are together and the knees are out. And notice if you need blocks under your legs, if that just seems like a quality support for your ability to sit up. Just a few moments, interlace your fingers, send the arms up. And finding what's a mild kind of gripping position. So you might feel a little bit of interlace, pressing, breathing. Okay, now we're going to shift so that the arms open, hands down. Try to be very deliberate with these motions. So that left leg hooks in, the foot to the bolster, the sand on the left, and it's upper legged, right? It's not at the knee, it's high up. I know they slide a little bit, so you might have to reset yourself up higher on the bolster. I said why you can get on it, but you'll try. And then as you get your belt, and you could try to feel the motion of the knee externally rotated, the right leg first, and kind of feel from your hip side of things if this is a good way to start to get into the leg lift, the heron pose. Yeah, I did start last time with the knee pointing up, And this gives me, I'm a little lopsided onto my left seat when I do that. So you might try versions, all these different versions. If you have a version to this version, try another one. So I'm going to hook the belt around my right foot. Now my foot is turned out a little bit. Okay. Get my belt up near on my body. So as I lift up the foot, or the leg, maybe it's more than a foot. I think it's more than a foot. Interlace your finger and interlace around your belt. I like this hook around the belt. This feels kind of certainly helpful for some reason. But as I pull, you want to feel where the foot flexes and how gravity kind of has you here. So you can bend, you really flex those biceps a bit, feel the leg having a sense of movement up. You're gonna prescribe your intensity. So you might decide, oh, I want to go a little bit, and then my foot turns out, oops. So you might get a feel of engaging with the lift of the leg, not just purely with the arms pulling it. So that's really difficult, isn't it? To just get the leg to do the work too. So that might come in if you bend your right knee and you bring your ribs a little forward, breathe. This is a little bit of a workout today, figuring this out. And then as the leg lifts, kind of kicks straight up. And you practice how you want. You can be passive with these options or very, very integrated to what I'm trying to attempt here. But when that leg lifts, one idea here, when we let the knee bend and we put the foot down, you can just hover the heel over the ground for a moment to cycle this sensation in the core. Okay. But just think of, and you don't have to kick your foot back up, but all these kind of movements here for the leg, for these positions, I want you to feel like there's circulation in the leg. So when I drop my belt and cross my foot over to the other side of my left knee, if this doesn't work to cross your foot or it hurts anything, knee, back, anything, you might put your foot on a block in front. This could be helpful too. You might even try it and just see if that helps your back feel more height. Okay. I noticed that the block prop for this one is good too. But as I hold on, I'm trying to work with the circulation in my legs. They're kind of pretzel here. Okay. So when you rotate to the right side, kind of feel how you make the circulation happen in your core. Purposely let the abdomen relax. And then the right hand back to the blanket. Left arm. Now I know last time I mentioned any direction will do. But you have the two options. You can sit center. And as you rotate either direction, or if you stay centered here, that's fine. Right? So noticing rotation, noticing spine tall, turning. Yeah, arm has some definition here for certain. Now, if you're kind of at wit's end with this feeling, any type of good happiness for you at all, if you're just doing it because it's your programming today, play with the movement, like get interested in the rotation, and have a little fun with it, because these muscles in the middle, these middle places, definitely collapse a bit with time, like they prolapse. So just this practice of kind of shifting around them and circulating and, mobilizing, nourishing motions are likely helpful. So play with it. You don't have to stay like in a pose and feel like you're stiffening in the pose. Okay, now come back forward, whatever direction you were, come out wherever you are. And then take the sand away for a moment. We're going to let that right leg stretch back, but feel when your hips are in this. For me, I feel a little bit my hip joint. So when I stretch the right leg back, stretch through that foot. Feel how the foot touches into the ground, how you roll back to the front of the hip bone, if you even did that turn. And as you set your hands and your forearms down. You know, relate to that second side. Maybe you need to kind of feel like you squish into the hip, you kind of squish down. Maybe that right leg behind you is helpful to stay relaxed, so the top of the foot is resting. Just kind of play with it as the spine. Well, it feels a little bit of circulation just from the shape. Balance the inhale. Relax on the out breath. It's going to be a process here because we are going to move to the wall very soon. So I want you to just kind of notice when you're simply in this seated pose without a wall support, right? Where you recruit the center, right? Where you feel the center of your body. Is it in your lower abdomen? Is it in your back? In either place that it might be, see if you can manage the focus in that space, kind of in the back space behind the heart. Feel that move a little bit. So it's almost like you're moving through cat-cow for a moment here, just flexing and arching the back. Just small motions. I mean, you can't get very big motions when you're on your forearms for your back. Especially if your elbows are on the ground, not on the blocks. You have less range. The blocks are nice for this movement through my spine. The last few moments here, you know, get a particular feel for how the weight is into that left hip. And then we'll come around to hands, to two hands, and lean to the left thigh. And then you'll come forward and take a moment with the seat, your seat in front of your bolster. So you're down on the ground, block between the knees, or a ball would be fine too. It could be either. But I'm pretty squished up to my bolster. I'm almost half off. Kind of feel like I'm part of the bolster at this moment. So I'm going to push into that block or ball and just lean back as if I'm approaching that chest opener pose we do often when we lie over the bolster. But just lean back for a moment and bring your arms out from the legs so they're separated. They're in air, right? They're not holding on. The feet might be turned in a little bit. Try to parallel the toes. Okay, so feeling that you've got all these props to support you. Squeezing in, breathe. Okay, so what's kind of left that we're going to work on blending is into the legs up into the arms. So when you squeeze in and you move forward towards sitting upright, that's all we are right now. Take the block out. We're really pure and simple. And then you're going to turn to go to your wall space soon, right now. So what I want you to take with you is actually everything goes today except all of it. Blankets, bolster, belt too as well. So put your bolster to the side, feet are at the wall, bring your mat too. You want a mat for this one, even if you think we're doing just restoratives. You want something sticky mat under your feet, okay? So you don't slide away from the wall. So put your blanket under your knees. I'll give it a couple more moments so we all can find that space at the wall. And let's see, let's have our blanket. So the other blanket, and I know your blankets might be unfolded and all over the place, but you want to have it so you have a pretty decent, it could be a quarter fold. It could be actually all the way out into like just a square. You don't have to have this quarter fold. This might be unnecessary, but we'll find out, huh? Why don't we just find out? Okay. Now I know why you cut all your little tassels here on the fringe. I wish I didn't have all that. Part of the blanket dynamic. Okay, so my hands stretch forward. I'm going to lean forward so that it's pretty low. It's not, even if you have it across the mat, I want your hands to be on the sticky mat. So having a really unfolded blanket might not be good. But push into your feet, press into your hands. It's nice to have feet, nice to have hands to stretch out the front body. Moment of gratitude for those things. And then when you come back to what you think is neutral here, I want you to press the floor away with just the hands and lean back, and can you put your head on the blanket? So it's quite far down, I know. Okay, head down. Reach the fingers out wide, round the back, and then lean back forward to up dog. Now we're going to let this pace pick up a bit. So head tilts. Now you might round your back as you proceed to this pose, right? Towards this version of child's pose. And you might only move your spine to round when you come forward. Okay, but I want you to alternate these patterns so you can loosen up the back and warm up into the sides. So feel that stretch. Okay, now move forward and lower down on the blanket so that you can center your elbows. So crocodile pose. Okay, so elbows are wide, forehead is on the hands. Press your feet, even if it's simply the balls of the feet, into the wall or the baseboard on the wall, whichever you have. You're pressing, and you want to get a feel that your feet are at the base, right? So they're not walking up the wall. There's no hope for that. It's simply the base that you're pressing and putting that energetic through the bones, right? So you're pushing away. It's kind of springing. Feet stay at the wall, but it's a nice internalized state to press like you're springing out from your feet. So head is down, breathing. Lift your head, feel the ribs and that level of sensation. Now, this may not feel like a chest stretch, but we're getting there. So hands go forwards, press into your hands and just lift a little bit. Let it be a baby back bend, just like you would visualize an infant moving around doing tummy time. It's no different. We're doing tummy time again. That's kind of how your life evolves, right? You go back to tummy time. So you're pressing down and you got to find where you're going to push. Is it the heel of your hand? Is it your forearms that you're pushing? I try to push into my hand and lift my elbows just a little bit. And then I sense that my rib cage, so if you can, stay down in your blanket, but I want you to kind of notice that what the blanket's doing is it's massaging in this area. You're trying to get this length in this front area and then stretching up into this chest area. It might seem really subtle, but that's kind of when good stuff happens, right? When it's very subtle in the energetic, but that's a part of our body that rounds a lot during the day, and it seems to be everybody's issue, right? We can't get away from it. So use the muscles in your arms to help you lift here. Just play with that. And then we're going to lunge. So we'll slide the hands back. Did I say we're going to lunge? We're going to lunge. So come back to table, move the blanket aside, and take a block under each hand and step forward with the right foot. Just lunge into that right leg. Let the left foot stay at the wall. You choose how close you are to the wall with your foot. Some people don't like to really feel like they're stepping into the wall. I personally like to find a blend of it. So when I lift my back knee up, if you did this without the wall, it would be different. Your balance would not be the same. So the wall is quite a prop. Now, if you do this and you round your back more because you're pushing and the resistance is too much, then what I'd recommend you do is let your foot still lift, but tilt your heel so it's lifted up. Maybe if you have a baseboard at the wall, it's lifted up a little bit at that space. Otherwise, if my heel's too high, then I tend to push around my shoulders. So the blocks can come up. We're going to eventually straighten things out with the legs, but for right now, try to stay with a bent right leg. So it feels like the knee is above the ankle, that area. Okay. All right. Just attempt to balance with the right thigh. So feel where the knee is bending. Okay. Bring the right hand to your sacrum. Now you kind of offset the balance to your left hand a little bit on the block. If your block is low, I'd bring it up. So make sure your block under the left hand is at its highest it can be. And then just get a feel here. So one thing to be careful of with our twists, well, I'm going to be a little more careful of it, is where I'm rotating from. So I want to keep this lower back steady, strong. My lunge is helping that low back area. So I'm not so interested in twisting my spine that much. Some of you might like that. So if you want to rotate your waist, really work that you're twisting from the thoracic. So you're turning with your chest as well to the right. Okay? I'm just going to keep my hand on my back, but you could lift your arm. If you want to keep it on your back, you know where you're turning from. It's just safe. It's very elementary version. If your arm goes up, go for it. Good. All right, excellent. Lower the right hand down and then slide your blocks back a bit. I guess they're not sliding, but they scoot back. And come into a full forward bend. So my left heel is going to lower down. If you need to keep it up at the wall a little bit, that might make it easier. But lower the left heel somehow. So the feet are parallel. The right leg is trying to straighten out. Yeah, that could be ow, ow for some of us in the hamstring. So the blocks only go so high. So you'll find that you can move them forward. You can bring them closer underneath your shoulders. You choose the version of your leg self that you want right now. If your heel is on the ground, it will, in the back leg, will be very intense in your calf. I know it's a whole new expression. Okay, get the feel for the right leg lengthening. If your chest lowers down, you can lower your blocks. But do know that if you lower them and you start really rounding your back, like you can feel the back muscles flexing, rounding, then you want your blocks higher. Just be careful. You're trying to lengthen out the spine. Do the best that you can to reach out of the spine. Not all of us are going to be in this shape, right? Some of us will find that we're up with the blocks, and that's still a challenge. Okay, let's shift it. Bring the left foot forward besides the right, so they're close, but they're not stepping over each other. Take a wide enough stance that you can release the spine. So move forward. Now, I find this is fine. I can use my blocks. Some of you might want to even add better times ahead. You might put your bolster here and lower down to your elbows. If you've never tried that, it's kind of nice to do. Head lowers down. If that seems too easy and you want a little more length in your spine, you can always take the arms so they lower down and they're not on any surface, or they don't have a goal to touch down. They're holding on to the elbows and the spine. Yeah, it simply spills out of the pelvis, huh? Hamstrings lengthen, head release. Change the arm crossing if you're holding your elbows. And just experiment with how the weight of your feet, well, I guess it's not the weight of your feet, but the weight of your body into the feet. Isn't it kind of interesting if you tilt back? It might be better for some of you, you just don't want to fall back. If you shift forward, it challenges us right into our muscles on the inner leg, So just notice. And maybe you're still going to think, I'm going to notice the weight of my feet. Because you can't move away from it. The only way to move is with them sometimes. Don't get too dependent here. Okay, so, get a feel for how the hands lift up to the blocks. Yeah, it feels good to get the blood flow into the skin of the face, doesn't it? It kind of changes the circulation of the sinuses. Lift a little and take the right foot back, so change sides. Start with the lunge. So let's see, last time we had the heel pretty high up at the wall. And some of you might decide, no, I want my knee on the blanket. I want to kind of settle into this next leg for a few moments. That's okay. Feels better for me to have my knee down for the moment. So satisfy the cycle of sensation that is in the legs. I know the upper body has to be part of this, but feel the muscling into your legs. Where's the restorative part? It's next. So feel the muscling in the legs. And if the back knee can go up, take it up. Then you might tilt your heel so it's just a little bit up at the wall. Feel the left thigh moving forward. Restoring balance into your bones. That could be what we call restorative here. Okay, and then start to reach the back heel down. And, be cautious here of all your prop supports. Having the blocks really low is not necessarily the best, the ambition you want to aim for. It's really individualizing, customizing your focus here. So feel what might work for you. It might be your blocks are lower, might be they stay this high. And you process lengthening your breath. Feel where the neck can be neutral. Breathing. Yeah, so the right hand stays on the block. My back heel, I've lowered it, but you might have it up at the wall a little bit. That might be easier for the twist. It probably would. So right hand is on the block, left hand at the sacrum. Try to straighten the left leg as you rotate. Would it be okay to bend it? It would be. Yeah, this would be fine pose too if my knee bends. When I straighten it, it feels better on my knee, but it doesn't feel as good on my back. So I have to kind of find what's a good balance in the moment. But if my knee's bothering me, probably I'm going to straighten it. So feel the rotation in the central, right behind the heart, that zone, right? The kidneys. This is where you really want to get some nice circulation right into the kidneys as you rotate. Turning left, breathing. Be sure you're on that block so you're not wobbling off of it if it feels unstable. Stabilize. Breathe with the inhale, focus on turning. Exhale. Turning on the exhale, I mean. And then as that left arm for some of us goes up, remember you can bend your knee. You might even feel like you can bend your knee and lift your arm, but not straighten the leg and lift the arm. So you can kind of play with how you balance. And then that left hand comes back. Turn the belly button down towards the floor. Belly bones. Okay, left hand down. And as we come back, we reach the hands to the ground. Okay, palms press. And then take the left foot back and, feel your downward dog with the heels up at the wall, just a little bit. I don't mean you have to walk up the wall with your feet. If you feel so interested, you could play with that, but push the floor away, stretch, open the fingers, feel the hips lift up, let your head release. Breathe. Now lower down the knees. Okay, we're at the wall, so this will be easy. We're going to turn so that we are now facing to the wall. And we'll take our blanket and move it back. So as you scoot to the wall, bring your feet up. You're pretty close. You're not very far away from the wall now. You bend the knees, you have that right ankle, and then take a, let's see, if you have a block, use that. If you have a ball, you could probably use either for this version of movement. If you only have a block, that's it, right? If you have both options, I would go for the ball. But place it between the knees, and as that position of orientation occurs, if you have a block, it could be the smallest width. It could be a little bit wider because that's about what the ball is. And I think you have to kind of personalize which feels better in your, just with your muscles. If you're small bone, maybe the width is better to be small here. So bring the feet apart. Hands are anywhere. For me right now, this just seems like the natural place for my hands. But I'm trying to feel where the spine arch is defined, right? From my tailbone to my to the movement of my ribs back behind to my shoulders. So if I had like a little skeleton to show you, I do have like a mini one I could bring to this Zoom sometime. But if you kind of visualize how the spine is lifting and arching and then centering the shoulders back. Just this. So you keep that arch. It's a great arch that you have. And if the feet can slide a little bit higher up the wall, let them go so you'll have more range coming up. It's just less pain on the knees is what I feel. There's less pressure. So I'm going to squeeze a little bit into the ball or block and then bring my arms overhead and lift my hips. A natural arch continues. And then lower the spine. Now you could work on stretching down through the spine, like you think of flattening that area, but be wise. Do what feels when you alternate these motions. That really honestly, intuitively feels safe. So for some of us, we won't come as high up. For some, we will strive to get higher up into the back. And the higher your feet are at the wall, that is going to go higher into your back. If you've done shoulder stand, you know that what we do is we get really close to the wall and we walk our feet up and we try to get higher up. This is part of the wall work. Okay, last time for this version. Yeah, I feel pretty comfortable with the blanket under my head. You might choose to opt out of that. Great. Nice work. So lower down. Okay, now keep that ball between, and then as you lower down, center the pelvis. Okay, so take the ball or block out. You'll need a block. And I would say, those of you that get pretty advanced with this one, try to use the blocks if you are going to use them under your pelvis. If you tend to use the block at the high setting, maybe opt for the second height instead with the blocks. Actually, let's see. The blocks would be, I'm just kind of showing how you'd stack them underneath you, but they'd be stacked like so, so they're both flats. Just so your sacrum is very safely kind of centered. It's not being pushed into with the block poking the sacrum area. No, let's be really safe here, okay? If you've got to do that and you're an advanced yogini, okay. All right, so feet are at the wall. And as I lift, I feel, actually what's kind of fun is you can feel the tailbone motioning under, but that's not really the goal here. It's not like you're doing a full bridge pattern. You're working a little more towards a shoulder stand with this pose. So when we lift, right, bridge pose is the prep for shoulder stand. So we lift our hips, and then we put our blocks in. Now, you can put the block in just one block at the center height. That's fine, across. Pretty good. I like that. If you feel a little bit ambitious, you can put one block on top of the other block flat. And you've got to kind of set the back of your pelvis on there. You know, just like you do on your back when you put your bolster under your pelvis too. Not much different. But set it, so you want low, medium, high setting, you decide. And then if this is okay, some of us, this might be the best for the back to have our feet at the wall. For some, we'll still have our feet at the wall, but we'll shift the feet down to the floor, connecting to the wall, and then let the quad stretch out. Yeah, we're not walking our feet towards our hips, right? This might be an old school version to stretch your quad, but this is not really a nice maturing thing for the spine. So you either have your feet up at the wall or they're down, and let the arms open the shoulders, bring the shoulders back, opening, palms open to the ceiling, down by the sides. Spend less time on making it perfect and like setting them internally together, but feeling the opportunity of opening through the chest. Yeah, and try to come into it. Let your spine center. Breathe slow. Relax the arms. Clear the passageway of the throat. Now there may be a feeling in the tailbone area that you're pressing. Okay, there's a little pressing. And the way to get this hip flexor space to open is to let that area feel that it's establishing a base of the bones are on their base, right, to open up the front. So I would encourage us all to bring our feet up at the wall and notice if that compression, instantly kind of releases. Feel your feet push, feel the circulation moves back to the upper shoulder space. And then when we come down, you'll push into your feet and then slide the blocks away. We'll be block free from here on out, so you can put them away. You don't have to go put them on a shelf, but move them aside and lower the spine smooth. You take the care here when you lower the spine that you bring the knees in towards the chest, hug them in, hug a knees, and from hug a knees, you'll rock just a little side to side. Hug a knees. It sounds kind of funny, though. All right. So, the back has this complex of rotation, right? So before we take a hip crossover, which you might be expecting right now, let's slide our blanket back and take extra caution here. When you put your feet down and you scoot back, just make sure that the back is really supported. You'll need your belt pretty soon. And you'll need a sandbag, I think. Not everyone will want to use a sandbag for this one, but I think it's a good option for support. So as I stretch the left leg straight down, so the foot is at the wall, it's at the base. So if you got a little board at the wall, a little base board, you want to get lower, so you're at the base. Tilt it up on the board. All right. Now bring the right foot in so the knee points up, and just notice how the back, all you do is notice things in this class, I know, but feel how the back is maybe arching more on one side than the other. You get two sides to your spine, right? They grow at a different rate. You're past growing probably. So you're going to take your sand and place it on the front of the left thigh. Yeah. All right. So my sand is a little bit on my abdomen and the front of the thigh, so it doesn't fall over. So I find that's probably going to work better for me. But once you bring your right leg up, you're probably going to change how close you are to the wall. You'll shrink in some parts and grow in some. So get a belt, bring your right knee in. This reflects on what we did when we were doing our standing poses. And then take your belt under that right foot and lift up. Okay. All right. We're packing in a lot of stuff here. So get a hold, then back to this reach around belt around my hands here. But maybe that's a little much. So just pull the belt, pull the leg this way, and feel if you can move your leg towards you, not away from you. Now this way your foot might not be pushing into the wall as much, so your work is on maintaining that with the left foot. The big piece of this is your left foot pushes into the wall. Okay? We're not so interested in how far you yank this right leg back. Just if my leg is straight up from my hip straight up or vertical, that for me feels, to be honest, the safest. Flexing, left foot pushes. When I start pulling my leg back, oh yeah, I feel more stretched, but it's a challenge sometimes in my lower back. So just really be sensitive. This might be the only time that you get sensitive with your inner focus on your bones and your sensations and the troubles we have, right, sometimes with our body. So this is a good time to really sense what's right for you. So modify as needed. Now, if I pull my leg and I keep it yanking on it, it starts to maybe shake a little bit. Very inner bone resistance. I can feel a little bit of resistance with the bones. So I'm just going to maintain that for a few more moments. They can tolerate it. It's good for them. A little bit of weight training here. I know you could probably hang your sandbag off your toes. All right, bend through the right knee. Don't have to touch your knee to your nose. But as you slide the belt off, bring the right foot down. And let's just change sides. Yeah. So stand on the right thigh. Push into the wall with your right foot. Bring your left knee in. Just kind of play with that experience of balance. You could even do this without your belt, right? You can hold the back of your left leg and stay this way. So, maybe that's better for some of us in our back. And you might go, okay, I get the belt on and then I'm yanking and it's tightening things or pulling this and that. So, use the prop, focus wisely. Maybe this side you just use the wall and the sand and you hold your leg with your hands. Or your belt. Here we are with the belt. Here I am. Okay, so flexing clearly. What's going on with your low back, right? Can you sense if the leg shifts back, your left leg, that it releases your weight into your back, right? So it should be opposite support. If my left leg goes a little farther back, the weight that's underneath that in my back, the body circulation is stretching further, right? The farther my leg goes back, the more stretch through the back plane. I know it's really obvious, but makes you feel like you're doing some good stuff, huh? Okay, this should be a fun journey now. So when you feel that support, whether the foot is straight up, vertical, or back, bend the knee, and keep pushing into the right foot, even as you slide the belt away. Push into your right foot. And take the sand away and take a bolster over to the right side of your mat. I need to change your pose a bit, not just like me. I know some of you, your bolster could be anywhere. And then cross the left leg over, but take some care that when your leg goes to the bolster on the right side, that your knees both are bending, not just your left leg clearly, but your right leg is bending a little too. Okay, if you've got a ball, place it at the sacrum. This is worth it. It's a good anchor for the sacrum. I don't know if the ball is still sold at that store though. I don't know. So if you need one, let me know. I do have extras for sure to give away. A freebie. Okay, so place the sand to the exterior leg and then move the left arm out. Feel how the torso has kind of a simple turn. So final spinal here. And when you feel that rotation, you might feel the shoulders back. You can have your right hand anywhere it's comfortable. Maybe it's to access the feeling of breath. Okay, now when you change, move the ball or the sand first, whichever feels right for you. And when you shift over, bring the knees towards you, but slide to the bottoms of the feet are on the ground. So you're resting on your back and you kind of have to push into your feet and reset the low back space. And then moving the bolster to the left side. Okay, so the knees are bendy. The left leg lowers down, but you don't have to push into the wall to start it. You could just let your body weight roll a little to that left. Right leg goes to the left side. So how, make it so it's honestly comforting for your circulation. So having a vision and making it, fit the exact picture is, I think really not wise. So you really tune into how it feels anywhere. It might not even be your bones. It might be your digestion. You might notice different things than just the structure. So, respond with love. Get a feel that you've got this turnstile here in the middle. So there is that digestive tract you're working as well. So I've got both of my props supporting me, and then the right arm is open and my head turns to the right. And relax the spine. Or mentally focus on relaxing my spine and the twist. There is an element of stretching the chest muscles. Whenever we're in a supine position, it seems like it's not a chest stretch for most people, but it is, because when I meet someone brand new to practice and lying on the back, keep getting their arms back can be very tough for a lot of people. So if it is challenging for you, notice it is stretch for your pecs. If it's easeful, then celebrate that, but practice it, because it's easier for that area to get tight and for you to round forward. So shoulders back, chest open. Maybe you feel a stretch in your hip too. Sand helps out. Okay, now if your head is turned or you're just kind of going back and forth, however you organically want to shift here, you can let your head shift back center, you can have it roll side to side. Movement might be useful just to keep that opportunity with your head to relax it side to side. But as you take the ball away, then the sand, we're going to get real close to the wall so you can push your sand towards the wall and then roll to your left and push to come up. And let's take our kind of ritual finale when we're at the wall, legs up the wall. Now, if you don't want to do legs up the wall today, you could put your blocks underneath your bolster, make a bolster bench, and let the legs rest on the bolster bench. You could be in reclining cobbler's pose with the bolster under your spine, with your blanket on top. That could be useful, but this will be what I observed today as demonstration. So those are options. If you need me to demo any of them, just let me know. Besides this one, okay? So take a seat with your sitting bones to the wall, your bolster's right next to it. And then you've got your sand nearby. You're gonna roll through the shoulder. Your arm has to weave through for you to come up. And you might, some days I almost fall up the other side of my bolster. So it's just all the setup that matters. So instead of coming back and then trying to get back up, see if you can set it up from where you ended up upside down. Okay, it's a new perspective on trying to get it right, to be upside down and try to figure it out. So with the legs lifted at the wall, or they're lifted on a bolster, whichever you've chosen, or a chair would be great too. If this is too much, you just use a chair under the legs. It might feel more accessible. Add your sand to the feet. If you're not using the wall, probably sand on your feet won't work. But you might have sand across your ribs, depending on what you've decided on. But as you experiment with the stillness coming up here, find where the leg circulation, you can feel it kind of embodied and flowing. So the reason I want you to have your legs up somehow is so that you're reversing the flow of gravity and resting the organs from gravity's downward pull. So it's getting the legs elevated somehow. So when you have the hands resting on the torso, if you have an eye pillow, I would put it on so that you can have that darkness set into the face to focus inwards. It's a little more calming. And then let the back of the pelvis, just notice how it feels centered. If you've got the bolster, it might be quite a bit of reaction to getting settled into the hips. Breathing, so the inhale fills the body. And on the exhalation, letting go. Inhale, filling up. And exhale, empty the lungs. If you have the covering on the eyes, it's a nice curtain of darkness to internalize. But if you have your eyes closed, that could be just as well. So noticing how the diaphragm expands. Well, actually, it doesn't expand. The belly expands, but the diaphragm moves down, and it's moving all the time. On the inhale, it shifts down towards the organs. And right now, it's different than if you're sitting in a chair. It's not quite with gravity. It has to go against gravity. That way, it's strengthening your breathing muscles. And then when you exhale, you naturally lengthen the exhalation in this position because the diaphragm has a little bit of a speedy move towards the heart when your legs are up. So naturally the exhale is longer, which is calming for the heart and the brain. And it's good for the vagus nerve. So these are good things to just have the legs somehow lifted. It doesn't have to be a headstand. It could just be legs up the wall, just like this. Now shifts. Let the feet push a little bit away from the wall. No longer landed at the wall. If you have your eye pillow, you might move it away. You might keep it on. You could probably try. And then if your legs are on a chair or the bolster, you don't have to do anything right now. You can stay. But at the wall, we'll bend the knees and we'll just shift the sand away and bring the feet to the soles of the feet towards each other as best as you can. Maybe it's semi soles, but you want to feel the knees moving out, and it does change the quality of groundedness in your back. How's a challenge here? This is a challenging balance for the back. You can scoop the feet higher up. That might make it easier on your spine. You could let them go farther down, challenging the inner thigh stretch. Really good meridian focus points here. Structurally, the liver, kidney, spleen meridian. So we're stimulating the function of those organs in many of our poses, right? Those are key yin meridians, restorative. Okay, bring the knees in just towards each other, roll to a side, and just find what side you want to go to. If you always go to the left, maybe go to the right, even if you roll into the closet. All right, and then take a seat. And as you arrive with the bones, however you are, whether you're away from a wall or you're near a wall, take a mini moment with the collective, even though we're live stream. We're all here doing the practice together. So just feel that focus inside yourself, that community, and bring your hands up in front of the heart. And feel if your head moves back, feel if your head moves forward, and internalize the focus, the peace of breath moving in. And with exhalation, move that peace inwards, bow into your heart. Namaste.